Hi everybody, Josselyn here. So happy to be with you, especially because I just got over a head cold and a sinus infection this week. So today's mat workout is kind of inspired by not feeling great and what you do to take care of yourself when you're not feeling great. So you'll need a foam roller, and this class I would kind of put it more in like the restorative realm. So lots of foam rolling, lots of circular, yummy movement, and then just a couple targeted sequences to get the chest open and to get the hip flexors in particular to release. Because when you've kind of been curled up in bed or sitting a lot and coughing and not feeling well, things in the front body can tend to get really tight and achy. So we're just going to focus on opening everything up, getting everything moving and hydrated again. All right, so you'll need a foam roller. You can choose the density. This one's kind of a medium one, but if you're feeling particularly tender, a soft foam roller would work. Or if you really want to like dig into your muscles, you could use a harder one. I'm not a huge fan of them, but I'll put a link in the notes to this particular foam roller if you don't have one and you're interested in getting one. All right, let's get started. So I'm gonna lay down on my back and I'm gonna bring the foam roller right underneath my neck. And I'm going to think about aiming kind of the apex of the roller right in the place where my skull and my neck meet. I'm going to find a comfortable position for my knees, gently facing up to the ceiling. My hands are on the sides of the roller. I'm just going to take a couple breaths and let my body sink. Feeling the bones very heavy. Really good time to notice if that roller's in the perfect little place. You don't really want it kind of like in the small of the neck that's going to force the chin up to the ceiling, but just promoting a gentle tuck of the chin in towards the chest so the muscles in the back of the neck are elongating. One more breath. I'm going to let my body sink. I'm going to keep a little bit of pressure of the base of the skull, neck place into the roller, and then I'm just going to start to turn my head from side to side. So giving those muscles a little bit of release. Noticing if my ribs want to start to tense up towards the ceiling, but really letting the back body fall. And keeping a pretty decent amount of pressure into the roller. So I'm imagining the tissue that I'm massaging kind of getting wide and flat and smiling out to the sides of the room. Making sure my jaw is relaxed, that I'm breathing and that my ribs are kind of constantly just falling in the direction of the mat. I'm going to pause on one side and find a little sticky spot and just start to draw some little circles, imagining I have a long pencil from the tip of my nose reaching across the room. And just drawing some circles with my nose pencil. And then reversing direction. And then over to the other side. Again, just taking a moment to let the body sink. And some nice easy circles. Rocking circles, any sort of movement that feels good here to kind of get into those little sticky spots. And then coming back through center. And letting that go. I'm going to use my arms. I'm going to gently press my body up. And I'm going to scoot back a little bit and bring the roller right underneath my shoulder blades. Okay, I'm going to interlace my hands behind my head. Elbows are a little bit narrower than the peripheral vision, so my shoulder blades are spread on my back. I'm going to lift my hips up. I'm just going to start to go for a rinse up and down between my shoulder blades. So there's some schools of thought about rolling and fascia, and if you're interested, shoot me an email and we can chat, or I can send you some resources. But in general, what I find with my clients is just it feels really good, and they always move better after. So I know sometimes it can be a little controversial, but in my body and in my practice, it feels good. So I'm going to keep doing it. I'm going to side bend over one direction and continue to go up and down in between my shoulder blades, just finding a new little angle. Releasing into that musculature, feeling the muscles of the upper back spread and widen. And then go over to the other side and roll up and down. So my upper back is really the place that feels pretty sticky. But you can feel free to roll down, a little bit lower. I wouldn't go all the way to your waist because there's some, fun structures like your kidneys and your floating ribs there, and you don't really want to put a lot of pressure on those things. But for me today, concentrating more on my upper back in between my shoulder blades, maybe even to my upper traps, my neck feels like just the place today. I come back through center, I'm going to put my hips down, and then I'm going to roll over on my side, nestling my armpit into the roller. I'm going to interlace my hands behind my head, and then let my bottom elbow sink onto the mat. I'm going to take a couple side bends with my pelvis. I'm just mobilizing my lumbar spine, kind of like we do similarly in a side lying series to find our correct placement and alignment. And then I'm going to settle in the place that feels just right. Go ahead and rotate my thoracic spine down, and then spread my elbows apart and rotate up to the ceiling. So it's a nice gentle rotation. Now if you're tight in your lats or they're highly structured, this can feel a little icky, and it's okay. See if you can let your muscles relax. You can always use your rules for modification, which in this case would just be reducing the range of motion, not making it so big. One more. And then I'm just going to simply roll over to the other side. Also, sometimes with this foam rolling, the foam roller has a little bit of a mind of its own, side bending my pelvis. So always feel free to adjust the position of the foam roller if it feels like it's escaping away from you. Finding a place that feels just right, and then I'm going to rotate forward, sticky, and open up. And rolling forward, and open up. 2 more times. Just nice and easy, using your breath, teasing some mobility out of the thoracic spine. Forward, and I'm going to make my way back onto my back. This time the roller is going to be a little bit lower down, so I want the tips of my shoulder blades hanging off. I'm going to stretch my legs long and feel my thigh bones very heavy. Interlace my hands behind my head. My feet are just gently flexed, but my kneecaps are relaxed, so I'm not tensing in my quads. I'm really letting my legs fall. Inhale, releasing back. Exhale, start to slide the ribs towards the pelvis, keeping the head heavy into the hands, and just watch that your tailbone doesn't tuck under, that you're keeping your pelvis really long, wide, and flat. The other way you can think about this is notice if your hamstrings, the back of the leg, want to start to lift up away from the mat, and see if you can keep them gently flattening on the mat as you mobilize your rib cage. Flexing and extending. And we'll do 2 more. Focusing less on abs, even though they're working, and more on mobility. This time I'm going to lean back about 1/4 of the way, so I'm nice and long in my neck, my ribs are dropped, and I'm going to begin to side bend from side to side. Check in with my thighs and my kneecaps. They were starting to help out a little bit, so I'm just going to let my legs be really long and heavy. Pelvis is in neutral. 2 more each side. Last one. I feel like my roller is escaping, so I'm just going to give it a little adjustment. And then I'm going to start to circle my torso. So now that long pencil is on the crown of my head, and I'm drawing a really big circle in space. Finding all of those little tasty bits in my thoracic spine that maybe don't get a lot of movement love. 1 more in this direction. And then I'm going to go ahead and reverse. Inhaling back, exhaling forward if you want to connect the breath, or just keep breathing. Sometimes, especially when you're recovering from not feeling very well, like re-entering into your life can seem a little bit overwhelming. So if connecting breath to movement is just not happening today, all of this stuff is just really flowy, so it's okay, just breathe. 1 more. And back up. I'm gonna go ahead and come up, and then I'm gonna move the roller down, and I'm gonna pop my pelvis up onto the roller. I'm gonna lean back. So my feet are down, leaning back on my hands. I'm gonna cross my left ankle over my right knee. I'm gonna roll over onto my left hip. I'm gonna give my glute a little bit of love, rolling up and down. For me today, it doesn't really feel like love. It feels interesting. And then I'm gonna find that little sticky spot, which for me today is my piriformis. For you, it might be a little higher up into your glute med. And then I'm just gonna do a little bit of mobilization, some circles, some small movements rolling up and down, just tease a little bit more release out of that sticky spot. I'm gonna go over to the other side, crossing the right ankle over the left knee. I'm gonna roll over onto my right hip, and up and down I go. So if you have wrist sensitivity, you can come up onto ridge tops. It is a little less stable. I have this nice table here, so I'm able to wrap my fingers around, which is a little kinder on the wrist. So on the mat, you don't have that luxury. But just make it work for you. You should have a lot of weight on your pelvis, though. There's definitely weight on your arms, but you'd want to try to not tense up away. You want to let your body kind of melt into the roller. I'm going to find a little sticky spot, which is a slightly different place on this hip. I'm going to move around a little bit, teasing more release out of that tissue in the sticky spot. Okay. From there, this is the way that I get down. If it doesn't feel safe to you, you can just lay down on your back, bridge up, and take the roller underneath your pelvis. But I'm going to keep the roller underneath my hips, and I'm going to make my way down to my back. Okay, so the apex of the roller now is kind of opposite my hip joint. If it's too far in the lumbar spine, it's going to promote this sort of extended position, which isn't going to feel very good as we go on. And conversely, if it's too far down towards my tailbone, I'm tucking, and then the roller is going to escape towards my feet. So you want it just directly opposite your hip joint, so your sacrum feels really centered onto the roller. I'm going to go ahead and have my hands down, just stabilizing it a little bit. And again, if at any point you feel like you need to adjust the roller position, that's fine. I'm going to take one knee up at a time. I'm going to let my ribs drop, but I'm not going to tuck my pelvis. I'm going to keep my pelvis neutral. I'm just going to start to take my knees from side to side. So a little spinal twist and a little release into the musculature and connective tissue and fascia that crosses over the sacrum. And then again, I'm going to find a little sticky spot on one side. I'm just going to do some gentle knee circles. Small, feeling my pelvis heavy. Reverse direction. And then over to the other side. Little circles. And reversing direction. Okay, so setting up for our legs series today. So I'm going to keep my legs in tabletop. I'm going to let my ribs drop. Abdominals are gently engaged. And I'm going to take one foot down and up. Working slow, working controlled, but also efficiently. So noticing where maybe the body wants to hold too much or not hold enough. So I'm trying to find that place where my abdominals are engaged just the right amount so that my spine doesn't move and my hip joints can relax. They can flex and extend. One more each side. And last one. Taking this into a single leg stretch modification. I'm going to extend the right leg long and back in. And I'm only taking the leg as low as I can keep my ribs organized. So I'm not extending by taking my leg lower, but I'm keeping everything nice and connected. Reaching through the back of the leg, letting the pelvis stay heavy on the roller. I'm going to do two more each side. Checking in with my ribs, making sure I'm breathing. One more each side. From there, I'm going to draw my legs on tabletop and lightly connect my legs together. And then I'm just going to flex my right foot and send it up, get a little hamstring stretch. And then rebend the knee. So my goal here is to keep the thigh bone where it is and use the movement of the foot and the dropping of the pelvis onto the roller to get that nice lengthening through the hamstrings. I'm also taking a little look at my knee tracking and just make sure that my kneecap is aligned over my second and third toe. One more time each side. If you can't get your leg fully straight, no worries. Maybe one day it'll happen, maybe not. Most important thing, just keep moving. I'm going to extend both legs up towards the ceiling, and then I'm going to alternate flexing and pointing. Getting a little bit of movement out of the ankles and feet. Good. Feeling the difference in the connection in the legs. So when I flex, I feel more connection in the front of the shin and in my quad. And when I point, I can start feeling more connection in my calf and my hamstring, maybe even all the way up to where my hamstring meets my glutes, maybe. I'm going to pause. I'm going to point my left foot. I'm going to flex my right foot, and I'm going to start to take the legs away from each other. So the rules of this little game are whatever foot is pointed, that's the leg that goes down. I am going for range here, but I'm thinking more about the feet reaching away from each other rather than trying to get one foot to the floor and one foot to my face. So I'm really focusing on length here. And if the range is small, it's fine. One more each side. And one. Taking both legs back up to ceiling, flex. I'm going to externally rotate. I'm going to open my legs wide, stretching into the inner thighs, and then I'm going to point and draw my heels back together. I'm going to flex. Take the toes out to the sides of the room and point. And flex. Noticing if my pelvis wants to go into a sneaky tuck, keeping my sitting bones heavy and my ribs heavy, and flex and point. Coming back into parallel, keeping the feet lightly pointed and stretched. I'm going to take my legs down. I'm going to open them out to the sides of the room and circle back up. My hips doing a little clunk today. I don't know if the mic is picking up on that, but lots of cracks and pops, so it's okay. As long as the noises don't hurt, it's okay. One of my physical therapist friends always says, we don't chase sound, we chase pain. So it's okay. You know, our bodies are big, breathing, moving beings. Sometimes they make noises. But just notice if the noise causes discomfort, then you want to try to address that. Legs up. I'm going to hug one knee gently into my chest. I'm going to take the leg long and low. I'm going to feel like my pelvis can kind of slightly go with my legs. So I'm not tucking, but allow the ribs to really deeply drop back. A nice, big, long psoas stretch. I'm going to draw the legs back in. And then I'm going to send the other leg long. Most important thing to do is breathe. Okay, from there I'm going to roll the roller out, roll my pelvis out, roll the roller out, and then I'm going to bring my feet onto the roller with my legs pretty close together. So this whole series can be done with your head down if you're just not feeling like doing any ab curls today, completely fine. Nice thing about having your feet supported on the rollers, you can really keep your pelvis in neutral, so you can find some nice length through the front of the hips because your legs are supported. I'm going to drop my ribs, take an inhale, exhale, I'm going to curl. Inhale, release. So there's a slight amount of work that needs to be done in the hamstrings to keep the roller from escaping, and we want that. So don't be afraid to feel like you can lightly draw your heels towards your sitting bones, contracting a little bit into the back line of the leg. 2 more. Last one, I'm going to come up and hold. I'm going to keep my feet heavy onto the roller. I'm going to lightly flex them. I'm going to roll the legs out slowly and then pull back in. So sometimes this takes a couple to get the groove and get the roller to behave and get your feet to behave. So you want to be light enough on the roller that you can gently roll it out and in, but heavy enough in the legs that you can support a nice long neutral pelvis. 2 more. And in. 1 more. And in. Inhale down, exhale, curl up. I'm going to draw my right leg up into tabletop. I'm going to glide my left leg long, and just 5 times rotate towards my right knee, and then draw the roller back in with the left. Rotating to the right, and to the left. Rotating right, and left. Rotating right, and left. 1 more time, rotating right, and left. I'm going to place my foot back down. Inhale, release back. Exhale, drop the ribs, head heavy into the hands, curl left leg up, extending long. And back in. I'm choosing to keep my feet a little bit soft today. If you want to point or flex, by all means, you can play with what feels better to your body. Today for me, it just feels good to kind of keep the lower leg easy and relaxed. 2, and in, and 1 more. Good. From there, I'm going to send my legs long, lightly engage them towards each other. I'm going to take my arms up to the ceiling. I can feel the rollers a little tipped, so I'm going to adjust it. Exhale, taking my arms back behind me. Inhale, lifting the head, neck, and shoulders up, and then exhale, right the exhale, and I'm going to roll up. Letting my legs roll over the roller, getting a little yummy calf pressure, and then rolling back down. I'm just going to do 2 more of these today. Inhaling, exhaling back, reaching the arms up, allowing the legs to reach so they roll on the roller, and lowering back down. And 1 more time, up you go. And rolling back down. Good. Transitioning. This time I'm going to roll up. And then I'm going to fix my pants. And so I'm on this raised mat today, so you're going to kind of see my feet dangling in the air, but most likely you'll be on the floor or on your mat on the floor. So you'll be able to have your feet in a nice grounded position. I don't have that luxury today, but you can still get the same idea. I'll still get the same benefit. I just have to work a little bit harder in my legs. So I'm going to take my legs wide enough so that I can bring the roller close enough to me where I can have my fingertips on the roller. And we're going to do a modification of spine stretch. So I'm going to start to roll the roller out in front of me, pressing down on the roller a little bit so I get that width across my shoulder blades, pulling the abdominals back, feeling a nice little stretch in the back of my legs, and then simply rolling the spine up. Just 3 more. Reaching the roller forward and rolling the spine back up. All the same rules apply, keeping the pelvis as neutral as possible. Reaching the spine long out of a nice stable neutral pelvis. And up we go. And last time, rolling forward. And back up we go. So I'm going to walk both of my hands over to the left, okay? So my right hand is going to stay attached onto the roller, and we're going to go for a variation of saw. So I'm going to start to draw a nice long arc, rolling the roller forward with my right arm, reaching back with my left, and then coming back to neutral, staying a little bit in rotation. 3 more. I have this kind of baggy shirt on today, but I'm really focusing on revolving around my axis of my spine. Might be able to see a little bit better when we go to side 2. One more time. Spreading my arms wide apart and back to center. Second side, walking my hands a little bit over to the right. Now I'm going to reach my right fingers away from my left and back to center. So I guess you could think about this similarly to what we did with the legs in that scissor exercise when the pelvis was on the roller, that I was reaching my feet away from each other as opposed to trying to create the range just by flopping my legs around. So here, can I reach my hands far away from each other and see what that does to my spine as opposed to feeling like I'm just going to crank my spine into rotation. Okay, last variation. I'm going to roll the roller forward. Hands are shoulder distance apart. And then I'm going to pull the roller towards me as I send my chest up, maybe getting a little bit of a back bend. And then forward I go. Reaching up, dragging the roller, pressing down on it, lifting my collarbones and my eyes, and down. One more time, lifting up. And rolling down. And then coming back in. Okay, so I'm going to turn around to face you. I'm going to set up in a figure 4 position. I'm going to go ahead and take my right hand onto the roller, left arm out to the side of the room. I'm going to roll the roller away and come back up. So a little mermaid variation, keeping my sitting bones heavy, feeling the front of my ribs dropping, so I'm not going into a back bend. A little bit of downward pressure on the roller so I feel the support underneath my right arm. And then I'm going to go ahead and rotate. I'm going to allow my pelvis to rotate with my spine. So I'm not trying to keep my hip down and crank from my ribs. I'm letting the whole system rotate, bringing my hands onto the roller, and then I'm going to go forward and then just simply come back up. Thinking about that waving action of the spine. Sometimes in this position, the back hip can grip a little bit, so you can play with where the leg feels best. Sometimes extending the leg a little feels better. Sometimes just not rotating as much feels better, so you can go more on a diagonal. Again, whatever feels better to your body, play. And back up. Swinging the legs over, setting up for the second side. Finding a little figure 4 position, dropping the front of the ribs, settling the sitting bones heavy. I'm going to go over and forward for 4. And back up. And 3. I also think my head cold made me lose the ability to count even more. So we've been a little loose with this workout with repetitions in terms of counting. So just make sure you feel even from side to side. One more, like that one. We got a bonus one in. All good. I'm going to allow my pelvis to rotate with my spine. I'm going to take my hands onto the roller. I'm going to go forward and up. And forward. And up. 2 more. Forward. And up. 1 more. Forward. And up. Okay, from there I'm going to place the roller at the front of my mat or table. I'm going to find my way into an all fours position, and I'm going to go ahead and bring my shins onto the roller. So kind of right below my kneecaps, so my toes can be tucked under for the moment. And then I'm just going to go for a little mobilization of my ankles. Okay, finding this all fours position. Getting used to feeling some pressure of the roller on my shins. And then I'm going to point my feet. I'm going to keep my pelvis in neutral, and I'm going to draw my knees gently towards my shoulders and release. So a little more active core work. There is a version of this where you round your spine, but today we're keeping everything nice and neutral and just focusing on that nice differentiation of the hip from the pelvis, or the femur bone from the pelvis. I'm gonna do 2 more. And last one. From there, I'm gonna place my feet back down. I'm gonna come up, and then I'm gonna alley-oop 1 foot forward. And then from there, I'm just gonna take a nice, easy lunging psoas stretch. And quad stretch. And psoas stretch. And quad stretch. Feeling my pelvis stay neutral, tailbone dropping, pubic bone up, and then really paying attention to if my ribs want to start to displace forward. So I'm trying to keep my plumb line, my alignment best I can. Hands down, second side, alley-ooping that foot forward. If you want to, you can lift your arms up. Today this feels good to me just to keep my hands down and actually use my hands on my thigh bone to create a little bit more space between my front hip and my front femur. Allowing the body to open up into the front, getting those hip flexors to gently release and open. And then coming back down. And then I'm going to move the roller out in front of me. I come lay down on my tummy. And then I'm going to find a place where my hands, possibly even my wrists, are on the roller. My legs are slightly wider than hip distance apart in parallel. I'm going to allow my forehead to release down. From here, I'm going to move the roller away, taking my shoulder blades up to my ears, and then drawing the shoulder blades down the back. 3 more. So in this nice little mobilization exercise for the shoulder blades, I'm also going to see if I can check in with my pelvic alignment, making sure my hip points and my pubic bone are equally pressing into the mat. Belly button is a little bit lifted, ribs are soft. Next time the shoulder blades come down, I'm going to continue to draw them down. I'm going to begin to press into the roller and roll it towards me and come up into a nice, easy, supported swan. So one of the cues that I've been exploring for myself, which has been interesting with clients, is as I come up into extension, thinking about my hip bones, or my anterior superior iliac spine, ASIS, actually rotating with my spinal extension. So my eyes lift, my spine begins to articulate, my ribs begin to come off the mat, and then my hip points actually come off the mat too and lower down. So I'm not only extending through my spine, but I'm also just having a whisper of hip extension here, thinking about the thigh bone moving away from the pelvis in the front. And for my body, it helps create some space in the low back, so you can play with that cue. I'm not tucking, but I'm just feeling about really creating length in the whole front of the body, from the hip joint all the way through the front of my spine to the crown of my head. And up and down. I'm going to roll the roller towards me. I'm going to press up into all fours. Costume adjustment again. I'm going to take my hands onto the roller this time. Take an inhale. Exhale, I'm going to glide one leg back. And in. So these are our planks today. Feeling the stabilization of the shoulders, holding the roller in place. I'm thinking about gently rolling my knuckles forward, so I'm not flexing in my wrist and kind of dumping into my joints to hold the roller stable, but I'm rolling it forward and pulling back in the backs of the arms so I get my triceps to fire. A couple more each side. You can see I'm keeping my foot on the mat, so I'm really focusing on keeping a gentle stabilization, but not adding too much load. Let's do one more each side. And in. Last one. And then big toes together, knees apart. I'm going to go for a nice, yummy, extended child's pose, giving my shoulders a stretch. If that's too much stretch on your shoulders, you can go ahead and just bring your hands down to the mat. And then rolling up. And I made it without having to blow my nose once. Amazing. I hope you enjoy. Take some time for yourself. Drink a lot of water. And I'll see you soon. Take care. Bye.